Hello everyone, we are live. We are watching 75 Days of Partition. This is day 27. I am Aprajita, a story scholar with the 1947 Partition Archive. We have been bringing some amazing speakers discussing interesting topics related to partition to your screens every day since June 3rd, and we will go on till 17th August. Today, I have with me an artist who chose to express the pain of separation and sufferings that were experienced during partition through her paintings. I welcome Tanya Momi. To give a brief bio, she formally trained and earned a fine arts bachelor's degree in Chandigarh. And after graduation, she moved to California and made it her permanent home. Her work falls into several categories: realism, cubism, abstract, Sikhism, and social realism. Recently, Miss Momi has focused her efforts in an abstract spiritual series. She experiments with new forms and ways to express inner beauty and strength. Miss Mommy's paintings reveal to the greater extent the sufferings of the people around the world in different ways. Her latest paintings depicts the 1947 India's partition and the suffering involved with the displacement of people. Tanya has shown her paintings internationally in places like Toronto, London, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Copenhagen, and Singapore. And she has exhibited her work in over 45 solo and over 30 group shows. Ms. Mommy's work continues to touch, move, and inspire people around the globe. Ms. Mommy, it is an honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a really close to my heart subject, and this is the pain and suffering of my ancestors. So, well, definitely, I'm so glad I'm here to share the stories of them since I did not experience partition.
We are also looking forward to what you have to show to us. So, I'll straight away jump to talking about your paintings based on partition. What inspired you? Since you say you're not a partition survivor, you're not a witness, then what inspired you to express the pain of partition through your paintings?
I would say my parents' story, my grandparents' story. I remember in 70s, my parents took us to Pakistan to visit my mother's home, and I was quite young, and at that time I didn't understand. It was a big deal for my parents to go back to Pakistan and see my mother's home, and here we visit her home, and then the neighborhood finds out that these people used to live here. They're coming to visit, and everybody in the neighborhood showed up, and we sat in my mother's home, and my mother's crying, and it was so hard to see that, at the time I didn't understand. I was a young girl. Why she's crying? What is such a big deal about visiting her home? uh, Experiencing that scene and coming back, and my father, who expressed he has written 22 books, and one of his book is called Pila Gulab, which is he wrote about partition, and he literally, my parents talked about it, and grandparents talked about their homes losing their stuff. So all these things, listening so many years, and then when I come across 1947 archived. So I had my dad comes from Canada to California to tell his story. And sitting here, they're in my living room, and doing that story, listening over and over. And it really, really just embedded in me. And everything was staying inside, but I couldn't express it. And somehow I did a Facebook Live, and I said, I'm going to paint these emotions. I don't know what I'm going to do. I had no clue where I was going to start and what will come out. But there was so much stuff in my brain for my mother's side, grandmother's side, visiting Pakistan and watching 1947 archived. So I started the painting Divided. I didn't know where I had no clue what I was going to paint. So I said, I'm going to paint the pain of all these people who couldn't tell their pain. So I had went and bought a gauze. So I said, I'm starting with gauze. So I start putting gauze on the canvas. So the painting, first, I'll describe it with my story. I started the rivers with the gauze because I remember telling them the bodies would be floating through the rivers. So the painting Divided, you will see in the middle, there's a gauze and there's a blood and there's a bodies which are symbols. This painting there's so much story in this painting. I painted a lot of symbols on it. On the top, there's an Indian flag, and there's a train coming to India. And these are the little bodies are laying all those black bodies are in the canvas. Then the brown mud, because it rained so much in August. So I'm talking about the mud and the trains and then the gauze. And then the bottom, there's the Pakistani flag where the train is leaving to Pakistan. And here these people are sitting in the train, leaving and coming. And my father said it took them 3 days to come to India. The trains were so full, they couldn't get trains. And I remember my father telling the stories about the trains. And I have wonderful memories about the trains, but this is so painful, just thinking about their memory about trains sitting. They didn't know when they were going to get killed or what will happen to the trains, and how it took them 3 days to come to India. So this is the painting, which is called Divided. And I'll just read a little bio about it.
Miss Momi, we have your paintings here for the viewers to watch. Can we have the slide, please?
Yes, please go ahead, side. Yes. So
So
this
this
is
is the painting you have been talking about.
correct. So on the right-hand side, on the top, there's a train coming to India. There's when many trains came to bring people back. Since they're divided, they're no longer in British India. They're divided India. So they're independent India. And then there's lines of bodies laying there, because there's 10 million people are uprooted and 2 million people are killed. And I don't think there's enough information in the Indian history books. And we kind of talk about independence, but we don't talk about the trauma and the tragedy of the partition. And in the middle of the painting, which you see river and the water and then the blood, and there's a lot of gauze I put it in, because we cannot express enough pain what our ancestor went through. On the bottom, there's a train leaving from India to Pakistan, and there is the Indian flag. So a lot of time people talk about that when you paint, you only paint about your own country. To me, India and Pakistan is one, because we were the same people who were moved back to, chose to live in India or in Pakistan. To me, they are human beings. I'm talking about human lives. I'm talking about emotion now. I'm talking about before partition, everybody was living as one. They were one India. So we need to stop pointing fingers and stop the politicians dividing us and ruling us. The politicians' job is to divide and keep the chaos going, so people keep pointing fingers at them, because the politicians are very weak. They cannot do so. First, to get the votes, they will make up all these stories, but then they'll say, "Oh, Pakistan is bad," or the India said, Indians are making up their own stories. The Pakistanis are making their own story. This is not stop. We really have to work together and unite. And these are the same people. We lost our friends and families in this. So this is where I'll end. This
Uh,
makes
Miss Momi, I find it very fascinating that you have lined the dead bodies near the border, which is the price that we have paid for this newly created border and this independence that we have gained. Is that what you're suggesting?
you nailed it. I don't have to express any more. So thank you for saying that. So we'll move to the next slide then.
Can we have the next slide, please? Thank you.
So this is called, I'm changing my slide also. Birds Know No Borders. I remember visiting the borders many times, because living in Punjab, you basically do picnic or visit the borders. And so I, standing there as a youngster, watching the birds going back and forth, but they don't need no visa. Nobody stops them. So this painting is double meaning in it. So I put the ropes and the birds. The birds are color of the flag of India and Pakistan, but they're sitting together. So the green birds and the red birds and the white birds. And the flying birds are like jet planes. This is how they're crossing the borders. I think,
That's quite interesting.
thank you.
Just like the representation, like in your painting, I'm reminded of the song in Refugee, if you have heard.
No,
पंछी नदियाँ पवन के झोंके कोई सरहद ना इन्हें रोके.
thank you for saying that. No, I do not watch anything Bollywood, so I have no clue. So thank you for. So the
Can we
next,
move? Yeah.
so same thing with clouds know no borders, and watching the clouds passing the borders and raining without permission, the steam coming from the rivers and going up to the clouds and crossing the border lines.
That's quite interesting too.
Thank you. So this is really a very interesting painting, which I put a barbed wired. Neighbors never met again. And I remember how my parents would be talking about their neighbors and their friends, and especially watching 1947 archive. And Punjabi TV is going to Pakistan and bringing the videos, and they send me on WhatsApp, and I've been watching all of them. So in this one, here neighbors used to hang clothes right next to each other. So there was no and now there's a barbed wired. So there's the symbol is a gauze, which I use gauze, and I put a Indian kurta with the shalwar, Pakistani shalwar, then the Pakistani kameez with the Indian pajama. So just to saying that we were one, and we wish we could live as a one. And this is one of my another symbol of memories.
Yes, that speaks of a lot of pain of separation that these people had to go through because they were so intimately connected and they could never meet again.
And the other thing, yeah, exactly. They never get to meet and not to express. So basically, I'm understanding their pain just and expressing their pain through my own art. And this is the painting "My Lost Without You." I heard one of the story. One guy had like thousands of horses, and he left them behind and never went back to look at them. And animals are so faithful that they know their master, and especially horses. So these animals are scattered and just standing as a symbol of horses standing and lost because they don't know who their master is and who new people have owned them. Wherever they were not being fed, they were not being taken care of because people were in such a chaos. From it took 3 years for people to settle down. And my own father's family was refugees for 3 years in India.
Miss Mommy, where had you been hearing all these stories that were besides your own families?
So 1947 archived, I'm just read every story, and then there's a Punjabi TV channel, Punjab TV. So they've been sending me all their videos, which they've been making in Pakistan. So I get to see their videos of their stories, and that's very emotional. And these people are in their 70s or 80s, or some are in 90s, and they all talk about their friends and families and their memories, what they left behind, especially in the archive, 1947 archive. How you guys feeling? Have you seen this person? You put pictures. Oh, my heart goes out. My heart melts. I just cry. Like, oh my gosh, if I would be that, I would be. They died with many people died with their stories in them.
I think that's the thing about, if I would mention it here, that thing about artists, that they absorb the feeling of people around them and then they express it through their art. I think that's amazing.
So I think artists are historians, and artists paints pain and suffering, and artists is basically, when first thing we'd see the artifacts, what is left behind. Artists tell stories and what's going on at that time. And art is not you can write about it, but my father always says, he's a writer, and I became a painter. And he says the pain and suffering I put in my art is just it's 1,000 words. Instead of a story, you can read that story in art, and art leave expression or impression in you. When you see a painting, you stand in front of it, it stays in your mind, and you have your own perception, and you walk away with your own story. Even the artist has a message or not, but you have your own emotion, and you really feel connected with it.
Yeah, very beautifully put it, ma'am.
Thank you. So this is very, very heartbreaking. So this is called difficult times. So you will see my grandmother, which is Nani, she's born in British India, and then comes the Indian flag where she's living, but her memories are left in Pakistan. So and uh, her scarf is made out of gauze. Her chunni is made out of gauze. And where I'll tell you a story of when I was pretty young and I would see her is because, she's lived in Lahore. My mother's born in Lahore. My grandparents, my Nana Nani was from Lahore. And she had so from Lahore, they moved to Firozpur. That's where they had a big Haveli, big house, and really nice. I grew up in, I was born in that house. So being very close to my Nani, she wouldn't tell stories, but I would see her. She will be taking out gold out of fabrics and the precious pearls, and she would be selling that because she became a widow after the partition. So it was tough. The time were very difficult times for her. So this is what I express her emotions and feelings. She was not alone. Many people was going through that same. They had lives they were living, and now they're financially broken and they have to start their life from scratch, and it was quite tough.
That's true. Yeah, this looks very interesting.
So my father, we always talk about, he lives in Canada, Toronto, Canada. My mother had passed away now, but she has said wonderful memories about Lahore. And she said, I'm born in Lahore, and visiting our home. And, it's the pride they took. So my dad said, partition was fine, but we should have, the independence was fine, but we shouldn't have the partition. That was the heartbreaking part for them. So, and he always says, one day maybe we'll win again. So this is the Indian flag and the Pakistani flag merging together. And where he says, I talk about visiting Pakistan and the hospitality I got. The people were so sweet, so nice. And so my own memories coming together and putting our differences aside and just being one with each other and understanding and having compassion and empathy with these human beings. They're part of us.
It's interesting how when they merge, the color becomes the color of the sky, which
Correct.
is, without limits, without borders and boundaries.
Very well said. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. And the next painting is about Kashmir. The Kashmir issue is, we're not talking about the issue, but I'm just talking about the chaos. And if you look closely, you will see from the bottom up, I'll go, there's water, which is rough, and then the boats are scattered, and then the fire comes in there. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see the police brutality where police is beating people. And on the right-hand side, women standing with their arms up in the air because women are getting raped. And the truth is there, but it's sad. It's the way humans are still suffering. We found the independence, but we haven't resolved, which is very easy to resolve. The young men shouldn't be killed. These mothers are, it's devastating. I don't know. It's hard to put my story together. I have visited Kashmir, but I have not experienced any of this stuff. So what I'm trying to do is put symbols and trying to educate people through symbols that we have to stop this. We shouldn't be living like this. We have to have a forgiveness in our hearts and empathy and compassion for all mankind and humankind. And it is very easy. Living with this frustration and anger and hate, it's not good for coming generations. And like your generation, young generation, I think if through this art I can express that we need to stop this fight with dividing and fighting with each other.
Yeah, it leaves quite an impact, this painting.
Thank you. So since Bangladesh was part of India and in 1971 they now became independent, so this is a symbol of a young country. Those are the two young boys are running with the pride, and with their Bangladeshi flag. So this is just which is part of India's history and how they are growing themselves through and taking them apart from India. If we shouldn't be living like this. We should be all, if we are wise and we are educated, we are now living in a different era. We should be all living in harmony. So this painting, remember us, my dad always said, I miss my dogs, my cats, my animals. I never get to see them. And he said when 3 days before partition, and the animals knew there was something going on, which he's written in his book, the novel Pila Gulab. So he said, 3 days prior, these animals knew something's going on. They stopped eating fresh grass. And so the day my parents' family was going to leave, he said his mother opened their ropes and told them to go, leave, go anywhere. They did not go, and they had tears in their eyes. And just not to go into too much detail because this makes me very sad. And my dad always talk about this. He said, I really miss my animals. I don't know what happened to them. And the other thing is, all these animals who are so faithful and, they will get fed twice a day so what happened to their owners? They never got answers.
That's quite painful because they cannot even express themselves. And how account for these pets and all the cattle, it's never taken care of. No, nobody recalls them or tries to remember them. But it's the way you have presented it and taken empathy for these mute animals, that is something marvelous.
Thank you. And we are big animal lovers, but this is when the way he expresses and talks about his, had dogs and cats and all those his animals. And it's really touching. And I really understood where he's coming from. So that's when and my father haven't seen any of my paintings. He has only seen a digital image. And I really wanted him to see all this. This is his story and everybody else's story, which I'm expressing. And then recently I was watching 1947, and they were talking about the Basant, the kite festivals, and it really touched my heart. I said, we were all 4 girls, so we didn't learn how to fly kites and stuff. But I remember seeing, heard about it and seeing it. So I'm not a kite, fly kites. So then I decided to paint another story about rooftop memories. How these people used to come together and fly kites, and they fight, or maybe fight over a kites or something. All those memories in India and Pakistan, and those memories are still there. But it's now those homes are there, but it's slowly disappearing. It's 75 years. Another few years, there will be no survivor. We will have 0 survivor. And that really kind of makes me very sad. And I'm so
So I
glad.
have a question for this painting of yours. Like Basant is a season full of colors, and like there are so many people I can see standing on the rooftops. They're enjoying themselves in full gaiety, but the kites are also of various colors. Shapes. They're
Yes.
called by different names. But why are they shown black here?
So this is, again, I'm using gauze. This is all. This is just so those people are never going to go on their rooftop and that spot. This is just ghost now. It's a ghost town. The kites
Yeah.
are gone. The people are gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is another very emotional. So what I talk about in this painting is the 5 rivers. So the biggest river is the Indus River. That's where all the 5 rivers comes: the Satluj, Beas, Ravi, Chenab, and Jhelum. And my dad talks about it. He has drank water from all 5 rivers when he goes back to Pakistan, to India. And the pride he takes and talk about, it's really, and I listen, and there's nothing I can do. I've seen Ravi, I've seen Satluj, and Beas, and I didn't drink water out of that. So this is when Barber crossed the Mughal king, Barber. Is that the right
Babur.
pronunciation? Yes.
Yeah, Babur.
So when he crossed all 5 rivers, he said, I crossed Punjab. Punj is in Farsi is 5 and Ab is water. And so I wanted to paint the 5 fingers and the both hands, which are now, they're divided. So uh, the meaning is 5 on both sides. I could have done one hand, but at 2 hands. And this is with the gauze, I painted the old map of Punjab.
Oh.
And these are the bodies flowing through that river, through our fingers, through the water and the bodies. With the pride we take about the Punjab and how the Punjabs got divided, and still the fight over Punjab right now. What you know, everything's depleted from Punjab. Take their water. We're such a golden land with we grow every crop, and what has been happening to Punjab is really sad. This Punjab is really need to be nurtured back again with these 2 hands. That's what I'm bringing. We've been divided, but how can we see this is Punjab is suffering? So this is now the last 2 paintings talks about the last one will be in the 75 years, but this is about, I just depicted village life instead of a city life, and then how this woman is reflecting in the water, and the wheat grinder that's how we were grinded. So that's a symbol, is how she's drifting away and looking back what the life she had and where she left everything, all her belongings. And it's not she is a woman, but then it's everybody who left their belongings. Many people did. And then how many people have reflected back and thought about it, what they left behind and how they started their life. Some thrived and some didn't. Some was thriving before partition, and some lost everything and starting their life from scratch.
It's interesting to know.
And this is my final painting, which is, I don't know if I'll be painting more or not. I do not know, but this is what came to me. This is for looking back 75 years. And this is what a poem I wrote, basically is a poem looking back 75 years on the both sides of the countries. We reflect 75 years. We reflect the freedom. We reflect the loss. We reflect gain. We reflect the dead. We reflect the alive. We reflect the pain. We reflect home they left behind. We reflect their memories. We reflect the animals they left behind. We reflect the physical pain. We reflect their mental pain. We reflect their financial pain. We reflect the separation. We reflect our ancestors' land. We reflect one human race. We reflect unity in us. We reflect not to hate our neighbors. We reflect not to spread rumors. We reflect to build bridges. We reflect understanding. We reflect as a good citizen. We reflect our country. We reflect love and peace. We reflect being a kind citizen. We spread love, peace, and kindness around us. We do not let politicians divide us because they divide and rule. We make a better place for us and all around us. We will make a better place for us and all around us.
So that also looks like the general message that you wish to give through your paintings, and also talking about, since so many of your paintings are just about those reflections, how people go back to their memories, and how even those happy memories which could have been those are marred by the pain that they had to suffer after that, all these emotional pain, financial pain, that mars the memories of those beautiful times as well. I'm again talking about that memory of kite flying, which you had depicted in black. So, is that the like general message that you wish to give through your paintings?
Correct. Telling their painful story and remembering and understanding it instead of pointing fingers. Who guys, who you guys are refugees. You were traded from, we trade you with Muslims, and we were all one. Our parents were one India. We have to remember, India is for everybody, for Sikhs and Hindus and Muslims and Jains and you name it, Buddhists. Everybody lives in India. India is one united country. We have to remember that, our history. Everybody came and invaded India. India never invaded on anyone. So our politicians now need to bring that is 75 years. It's only we are a young country. Remember our history and who sacrificed for this. Don't forget the people who sacrificed. Those are the people who are true to your country. They're there for you. They have given you everything. So please remember them.
Your paintings are deeply moving. I think the way you are trying to do a visual storytelling through your paintings can help make these complex stories easier to understand, and as a result, they are delivering this more impactful message that you are trying to put across. And through your paintings, a deep empathy is created for that pain of those who lost their homeland, their acquaintances, their life as they knew it. And this pain, through my research also, I've found that it runs through generation. It continues to affect us even today. Your paintings are thoughtful. They give the right message. It was a great joy talking to you this evening. I thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you for giving the privilege and time to express my ancestral stories, my India story. I was born in India and I will always be a proud Indian. But I'm in the United States and wherever I live, I serve my country and with peace, empathy, compassion, and bring people together, to understand. To love is to understand. Understand is to love. Just, don't spread rumors and stories about it. Understand this is the truth and follow the truth and listen to the truth. And the young generation, and pave a better path for young generations so they can live in love and harmony.
It was a great pleasure talking to you, ma'am. Thank you again. Bye.
My pleasure. Thank you.